Hakaris curse technique, Private Pure Love Train, is undeniably powerful, but it has a unique weakness. In today's video, we'll explain and fix this shortcoming for Hakari's character. Hey guys, it's Ryugo here. Today we're deep diving into Hakari's curse technique and its one weakness. It isn't the intervals between jackpots, his apparent lack of firepower, or his head being a weak spot. It's a flaw caused by his unique circumstances in the story as a whole that Gege didn't have the foresight to realize when writing the character. So stick around, because not only we will expand upon this flaw, but we will also reveal a reworked version of Private Pure Love Train, one which suits both the needs of Hakari's character and could expand his potential into an Honored Wound level sorcerer. Without further ado, let's begin. But before beginning, I need to clarify something. Hakari's weakness isn't rooted in the timing of his jackpots or his offensive capability. Despite not having a signature finishing move, Hakari has proven he can survive long enough to hit the jackpot, even against formidable opponents like Kashimon and Uraome, both of which were special grade combatants going for the kill. And it's not his apparent lack of firepower, because I will admit Hakari has a lack of a finishing move. Saying Hakari's attacks don't do any damage, for me, it's quite nonsensical. The issue I bring to your attention is related to the circumstances of his introduction. Hakari was introduced late in the story, which limited the time for his abilities to be fully developed. All the other heavy hitters have multiple power-ups throughout the story, but being introduced so late didn't allow Gege to evolve Restless Gamber into a Gojo level power like everyone hoped. Don't get me wrong, I do believe that the current incarnation of Idle Death Gamble is not the same he started with. The current incarnation is cool and all, but has one weakness that limits his writing, and that is how reactive it is. Immortality is cool and all, and that's what makes him unique from almost anyone else, but at the same time having such a defensive ability can be quite a nuisance. Let me show you an example. What made Kashimo vs Hakari, and what could have made Hakari vs Uraome so interesting is how Hakari's enemies need to come up with new and interesting ways to bypass immortality. Otherwise they would just be keep damage until they will eventually lose. Fighting Hakari is a matter of how quickly finding a way to unalive an immortal before he can unalive you. Or that should have been the case. But here's where we find the problem. Besides Hakari having a rough cursed energy, that's where his offensive abilities end. Jackpot being a reactive ability basically means that although Hakari's opponents can't kill him, Hakari can't kill his enemies either. That isn't a problem when you're dealing with your average sorcerer, but Hakari ain't fighting your average sorcerer. The type of people he would need to use Idle Death Gamble against, and Charles, aren't the type to let just keep punch fighting until the raid squad comes home. What I think was Gege's intent was making Hakari a fighter that wears down his enemies little by little, but he forgot to add the little by little part, and ironically enough, only got away with it because of how late Hakari was introduced. As a quick reminder, Idle Death Gamble functions like a slot machine. When activated, a lever starts to gamble for outcomes, aiming to hit the jackpot. If successful, he gains unlimited cursed energy and automatic reverse curse technique for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, allowing him to heal instantly and battle with unlimited cursed energy. If he fails, he enters a very short cooldown period where he's made vulnerable. However, he can simply re-roll almost immediately. Hakari's abilities are pretty unique, but that doesn't eliminate the fact that he still needs a more proactive ability, so my proposal is Idle Death Gamble 2.0, an evolved version of Hakari's technique, one that retains the gambling element but adds offensive option based off the outcome. This new version will still force Hakari to take risks, while making his fights much more exciting. So now I present to you Idle Death Gamble 2.0. What's so exciting about this evolution is now every numbered outcome gives Hakari something new to play with, by giving him sort of a new technique that can be imbued with his infinite energy. However, with great power also comes great binding vows. For example, by making the binding vow of subscribing, you would gain the power of new and creative Jujutsu content straight to your YouTube feed. It helps a lot, and thank you for subscribing from the bottom of my heart. But going back to Hakari, now the number he would get actually matters. Think of it like playing a roguelite where your abilities are different every time you play, but because this is an evolution of Hakari's technique, this still means he still has no say in the number he would get. And in this version, this is especially important because we now have 3 kinds of jackpot. But no matter what number he would get, some things like automatic RCT and infinite energy would still apply, and this is especially important because now we have new abilities such as number 1. The Fisher of Fortune. When the slot machine hits 1, Hakari gets a cursed whip that we will call the Fisher of Fortune. This cursed tool has the ability to be used as a whip, allowing a way for Hakari to fight enemies at a distance, or even to fish his opponents, bringing him to a distance he's more comfortable with. I know this might seem kind of left field to give Hakari such a strange weapon, but believe me, it's all going to make sense in a bit. Number 2. The Mallet of Wealth gives Hakari a 200% increase in cursed energy in his hands especially. breaking the limits of reinforcement all bodies carry, making Hakari's fists, who are already imbued with a rough cursed energy, to hit even harder than before. Forget a baseball with glass shards, now you're being hit with a truck full of glass shards. Number 5 is the Abundance of Fortune. It's basically just automatic RCT plus, and this would even give Hakari a better control of his cursed energy as well as an even better RCT, making him truly immortal. If there was a minuscule number of characters that could kill him before, now that number actually plummets to 0, and it will also let Hakari use his RCT on others. Number 6 we'll call the Crane and the Tortoise. Makes Hakari extremely evasive by boosting his speed to levels unseen before, while at the same time boosting his reinforcement to levels almost like the Heavenly Restriction users. And number 7, the Fan of Blessings, gives Hakari an expertise in cursed energy output. While he ain't going to have the same output as someone like Ryu, he still is going to be powered by infinite energy, so his blast can travel much further and hit in a much longer range. Now, you might have noticed that we've skipped both the number 3 and the number 4. This is because both these numbers carry a large meaning in Japanese mythos, as they are associated with good and bad luck respectively, so it'd just be fitting that these guys would have their special place in this rework. When Hakari gets a number 4, he will get a new ability that's called the Heaven Spear, a technique that uses his cursed energy to its max to make up to an unblockable attack that can pierce through any defense. But wait, says the incredibly handsome viewer who has already liked the video, I thought it was supposed to be a bad roll. And it is. You see, we haven't talked about the new weakness of Idle Death Gamble 2.0. In order to have such busted abilities, Hakari would have need to create a binding vow that gives him a pretty serious weakness to compensate. Getting a number 4, or also known as an unlucky jackpot, means that Hakari would actually be weaker than he is at base. Not only that, but he would also lose his infinite energy and as a result, losing his automatic RCT in the process. That doesn't sound so bad, but there is also a new condition. Hakari can now be knocked out of jackpot. But he can just cast it again, right? No. By being extremely damaged in a short amount of time, it would cause it to be knocked out of jackpot and as a result not getting his cursed energy refill. In other words, not only he would need to be at a massive loss of cursed energy due to casting his domain, but he will also be unable to cast it again, basically making Hakari a sitting duck. And to add insult to injury, every time he doesn't get an unlucky jackpot, more number 4s are added to the slot machine, meaning that the more times he gets a jackpot, the more likely it is to get an unlucky jackpot. But they do say that it's darkest before the dawn. So if Hakari manages to somehow survive having the odds stacked against him, all the number 4s would vanish and be replaced with number 3. Unlike what I initially thought, it's not the number 7 that is considered lucky in Japan, but the number 3. So we finally get to his final roll, and the most powerful one. Number 3. The Lord of Fortune, otherwise known as the Golden Jackpot, and this is where Hakari finally fulfills what Gojo thought he was already meant to do and finally reaches his level. This basically gives Hakari all of his other abilities we've established, including the Heavenly Lance, without any drawbacks. In other words, for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, Hakari becomes quite literally a Gojo level sorcerer. This might sound like an exaggeration, but look at the stats here. He has an unblockable attack, can fight at any range he desires, can shoot cursed energy with more range and longer periods than Ryu, and all of this while being carried an automatic RCT that surpasses even Gojo with infinite energy at his disposal. And I do mean that Hakari becomes a god of the Jujutsu world, because all of these new abilities are based upon deities of good luck in Japanese Buddhism, so now you know that I wasn't just taking abilities out of my ass. The Whip of Fortune is based around the Rod of Ebisu, the Mallet of Wealth is based upon the Mallet of Daikoku, the Abundance of Fortune is based upon Hotei, the Mark of the Crane is based on Fukurokucho, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, the Fan of Blessings is based around Jurojin, and the Lance of Heaven is based upon Bishamonten, with finally the Lord of Fortune being based upon Benten. So now that you know that an evolved Hakari could have reached the heights of Gojo Satoru, you might be shocked to know that he was the one responsible for teaching Gojo a critical skill that let him survive against Sukuna, and you can learn all about it by watching the video that is now on screen. Thank you for watching the video guys, and see you in another video. Goodbye!